On a wide stretch of open land in southern England, a circle of massive stones has stood for thousands of years. There are no inscriptions carved into its surfaces, no records left behind to explain its purpose, no surviving voices to tell us who first raised these stones or why they chose this place. And yet, Stonehenge remains one of the most carefully planned prehistoric structures ever discovered. Unlike ruins that crumble into obscurity, Stonehenge resists dismissal. Its stones are not scattered randomly. They are positioned with intent, arranged in circles and horseshoe patterns that suggest design rather than chance. Some stones stand upright, others rest horizontally across their tops, locked together with joints that imply engineering knowledge far beyond what was once assumed of prehistoric societies. For centuries, Stonehenge was treated as a curiosity. Early explanations ranged from myths of giants to legends of magic. Later, scholars attempted to frame it as a crude structure built by primitive people with limited understanding of their environment. But each new study chipped away at that assumption. The more closely Stonehenge was examined, the clearer it became that its builders possessed patience, organization, and a deep awareness of the landscape around them. Stonehenge was not built quickly. Archaeological evidence suggests that construction occurred in stages, spanning generations. This was not a single project completed within one lifetime, but a long-term effort maintained by a community that believed the structure mattered enough to continue building it long after its original planners were gone. That alone raises an important question: what kind of belief system motivates people to invest centuries into a single monument? The stones themselves add another layer of mystery. Some of the largest blocks weigh over 20 tons. They did not originate at the site. Many were transported from distant locations, across rough terrain, without the use of wheels, metal tools, or domesticated animals capable of heavy hauling. The effort required to move these stones suggests not only physical labor, but coordination, leadership, and shared purpose. Yet Stonehenge offers no obvious practical function. It was not a fortress. It was not a settlement. It does not provide shelter, storage, or defense. Whatever its purpose was, it was symbolic rather than utilitarian. And symbols, especially enduring ones, tend to point toward beliefs that lie deeper than survival alone. Today, Stonehenge stands silent. Wind passes between its stones. Shadows move across its interior. The structure remains physically unchanged, even as interpretations shift around it. Every theory proposed about its origin reveals as much about modern thinking as it does about the ancient world. To understand Stonehenge, we must accept one uncomfortable truth from the beginning: the people who built it did not leave explanations behind for us. They did not expect to be understood thousands of years later. What they left instead was a question made of stone. And that question still stands. Long before the stones of Stonehenge rose above the plain, people already lived and moved across this landscape. They were not wanderers passing through unfamiliar territory. Archaeological evidence shows that the region around Stonehenge had been inhabited for thousands of years before construction began. These communities hunted, farmed, buried their dead, and marked the land in ways that reveal long-term attachment rather than temporary occupation. The people of this period lived at a turning point in human history. They were no longer fully nomadic, yet not entirely settled in the way later agricultural societies would become. Farming had begun to reshape daily life, but survival still depended heavily on seasonal rhythms, weather patterns, and cooperation within groups. In such a world, shared knowledge and collective memory were essential. What emerges from excavations near Stonehenge is a picture of organized communities rather than scattered families. Evidence of communal feasting, shared burial grounds, and repeated gathering at specific sites suggests that people regularly came together for purposes beyond basic survival. These were societies capable of coordination on a scale large enough to sustain long-term projects. This context matters because Stonehenge did not appear suddenly in an empty landscape. It emerged from a culture already accustomed to marking meaningful places. Smaller monuments, wooden structures, and earthworks existed in the region before the first large stones were set in place. Stonehenge was part of a broader tradition of shaping the environment to reflect belief, memory, and identity. The builders of Stonehenge likely did not see themselves as creating a mystery. They were participating in practices that made sense within their worldview. Their understanding of time, death, and the natural world was deeply intertwined. The sky, the land, and human life were not separate categories, but parts of a single system that demanded balance and recognition. Importantly, there is no evidence that Stonehenge was built by an elite ruling class forcing labor from below. Instead, signs point toward cooperative effort. The scale of construction suggests participation from many groups, possibly drawn together by shared rituals or seasonal events. This was not a monument imposed on a population. It was a monument maintained by one. Generations likely grew up seeing Stonehenge change slowly over time. Stones added, rearranged, or replaced. Children became adults while construction continued. Elders passed down instructions and stories that explained why the work mattered. Even if the original purpose shifted, the commitment remained. Understanding these people does not give us clear answers, but it removes one misconception. Stonehenge was not built by primitive minds struggling to imitate complexity. It was built by communities with social structures strong enough to sustain belief across centuries. Before Stonehenge became a circle of stone, it was an idea, one that lived among people who believed that some places were worth shaping not for shelter, but for meaning. One of the most enduring mysteries of Stonehenge lies not in its shape, but in its materials. The stones that form the monument did not originate where they stand today. Geological analysis has shown that Stonehenge is composed of two primary types of stone, each telling a different story of distance, effort, and intent. The largest stones, known as sarsens, weigh up to 25 tons each. They are composed of a dense sandstone that does not naturally occur at the Stonehenge site. Their closest known sources lie many kilometers away, across uneven terrain with no obvious natural routes. Moving such massive blocks would have required planning, manpower, and time on a scale rarely associated with prehistoric societies. Even more puzzling are the smaller bluestones. These stones are lighter than the sarsens, but their origin lies far beyond the local region. Many can be traced to the Preseli Hills in western Wales, more than 200 kilometers from Stonehenge. Transporting them would have involved crossing rivers, hills, and valleys without wheeled vehicles, metal tools, or draft animals capable of hauling heavy loads. For decades, scholars debated whether these stones were moved by human hands at all. Some proposed that glaciers carried them closer during earlier ice ages, leaving prehistoric builders to gather what nature had already delivered. But geological evidence does not fully support this explanation. The stones appear to have been deliberately selected, shaped, and placed, not casually collected from nearby deposits. If humans moved them, the implications are profound. Transporting stones of this size would have required large groups working in coordination, possibly over long distances and extended periods. This suggests a society capable of organizing labor, managing resources, and maintaining shared goals over time. Such capabilities challenge older assumptions that prehistoric communities lacked complexity. The act of moving the stones may have been as significant as erecting them. Some researchers believe the journey itself carried ritual meaning. Transporting stones across the landscape could have symbolized connection between distant regions, uniting different communities through shared effort. In this view, Stonehenge was not only a destination, but the endpoint of a process that began far beyond its circle. There is also the question of why these specific stones were chosen. Their color, density, and acoustic properties differ from local materials. Whether these characteristics held symbolic meaning is unknown, but the consistent selection of particular stone types suggests intention rather than convenience. Stonehenge forces us to reconsider the limits we place on ancient capability. The stones stand as physical evidence that prehistoric people were not constrained by the same assumptions modern observers often project onto them. They did not lack ambition. They did not lack organization. And they were willing to invest extraordinary effort into something that offered no obvious practical return. In the end, the stones themselves refuse to be dismissed as accidents of geography. They are where they are because someone, long ago, believed they belonged there. Understanding where the stones came from only deepens the next question: how were they assembled with such precision? Stonehenge is not a pile of rocks arranged by trial and error. Its structure reveals planning, measurement, and a working knowledge of stability that contradicts the idea of improvised construction. The most striking feature is the use of lintels, horizontal stones carefully placed atop vertical pillars. These lintels are not simply balanced. They are shaped with interlocking joints. Similar in concept to woodworking techniques used thousands of years later, mortise and tenon joints carved into stone ensured that the horizontal stones would not slide off their supports. This required foresight, skilled shaping, and an understanding of load distribution. Equally impressive is the curvature of the outer ring. The stones were shaped so that their inner faces follow a smooth circular arc. This means the builders were not merely placing stones where they fit, but actively shaping them to conform to a predetermined geometry. Such precision suggests the use of measuring systems, whether based on body units, rope lengths, or repeated visual alignment. Raising stones of this size would have been a slow and deliberate process. Archaeologists believe earthen ramps, wooden frames, and coordinated lifting techniques were used. This was not brute force alone. It required timing, communication, and shared understanding among large groups of workers. One mistake could mean injury, wasted effort, or structural failure. What makes this more remarkable is the absence of written plans. Every stage of construction relied on memory, oral instruction, and repeated practice. Knowledge was not stored on paper or stone tablets, but in people. This implies a strong tradition of teaching and transmission across generations. The builders of later phases trusted the work of those who came before them. Stonehenge also reveals restraint. The monument was not expanded endlessly. Its final form reflects decisions about when to stop. Some stones were rearranged, others removed, but the overall design remained coherent. This suggests that the builders were not chasing novelty, but adhering to a concept they considered complete. There is no evidence of hurried construction. Tool marks show patience rather than speed. Stones were dressed carefully, even in areas that would not be easily visible. This indicates that the act of building mattered as much as the finished appearance. The process itself may have held symbolic weight. What Stonehenge demonstrates is not technological superiority, but intentional engineering. The builders worked within the limits of their tools and materials, yet achieved results that remain stable after thousands of years. Their success did not depend on advanced machinery, but on coordination, experience, and shared purpose. Stonehenge stands today not because it defies physics, but because it respects them. Its survival is a quiet testament to knowledge earned through observation rather than theory, and to a form of engineering rooted in collective human effort rather than individual invention. As the physical construction of Stonehenge reveals careful planning, its relationship with time reveals something even deeper. Stonehenge is not oriented randomly within the landscape. Its main axis aligns with specific moments in the solar year, most notably the summer solstice sunrise and the winter solstice sunset. These alignments are not approximate. They are deliberate, repeatable, and precise enough to suggest long-term observation of the sky. For societies without written calendars, tracking time was essential. Seasonal change determined when to plant, when to harvest, when animals migrated, and when communities gathered. The sun and moon were not abstract concepts, but reliable markers in a world governed by cycles. Stonehenge appears to have transformed these cycles into a permanent reference point. On the longest day of the year, the rising sun aligns with the heel stone and sends light directly into the heart of the monument. On the shortest day, the setting sun aligns in the opposite direction, framing the stones once more. These moments occur only briefly, yet they repeat with unwavering consistency year after year. Such reliability would have carried enormous symbolic weight. What matters is not only that Stonehenge marks these events, but that it emphasizes the winter solstice. While modern cultures often celebrate the height of summer, many researchers believe the winter solstice held greater importance for prehistoric communities. It marked survival through the darkest period of the year and the promise that days would grow longer again. In this sense, Stonehenge may have functioned as a reassurance as much as a calendar. The monument's design also suggests awareness of longer cycles beyond the sun. Some researchers argue that Stonehenge reflects lunar patterns, eclipses, or combined solar-lunar calendars. While these interpretations remain debated, they point toward a broader idea: Stonehenge was not merely a marker of days, but a framework for understanding time itself. Importantly, these alignments would not have been discovered quickly. They required generations of observation, memory, and correction. This implies a culture willing to invest in knowledge that extended beyond individual lifetimes. The builders were not reacting to a single event in the sky. They were responding to patterns that only reveal themselves through patience. Stonehenge may have served as a shared timekeeper, synchronizing communal life. Gatherings likely coincided with solstices, reinforcing social bonds while anchoring belief systems to cosmic order. The monument would have reminded its observers that human life unfolded within a much larger rhythm. By embedding celestial cycles into stone, the builders of Stonehenge gave permanence to something otherwise intangible. Time, which normally passes unseen, was made visible. The sky's movement was translated into architecture, turning observation into structure. Stonehenge does not tell us what its builders believed about the universe, but it shows us that they believed time itself was worthy of monument. And in doing so, they transformed passing moments into something that could endure. As Stonehenge's connection to time becomes clearer, another layer of meaning begins to emerge, one tied not to the sky, but to human mortality. Excavations in and around the monument have revealed that Stonehenge was closely associated with burial practices, particularly in its earliest phases. Long before the massive stones were erected, the site already functioned as a place of the dead. Cremated human remains discovered in nearby pits suggest that Stonehenge was once part of a larger funerary landscape. These were not random burials. The remains appear carefully placed, indicating ritual intent rather than convenience. This implies that Stonehenge may have served as a boundary space, separating the world of the living from that of the ancestors. In many ancient cultures, death was not viewed as an end, but as a transition. The dead were believed to continue influencing the living, offering protection, guidance, or warning. Monuments built in association with burial often acted as points of contact, places where memory, ritual, and belief intersected. Stonehenge may have functioned in exactly this way. What is striking is that Stonehenge was not a graveyard in the conventional sense. It does not contain large numbers of bodies, nor does it show signs of repeated burial over time. Instead, it appears selective. This suggests that those interred there were not ordinary individuals, but people of particular significance, perhaps leaders, elders, or symbolic representatives of the community. The alignment with the winter solstice reinforces this interpretation. In many belief systems, the darkest time of year is associated with death, rebirth, and the return of light. Gatherings at Stonehenge during this period may have honored the dead while reaffirming the continuation of life. Fire, feasting, and ceremony could have transformed the monument into a space where loss and hope coexisted. The stones themselves may have played a symbolic role. Some researchers propose that stone represented permanence and ancestry, while wood, used in nearby ceremonial sites, symbolized life and change. In this framework, Stonehenge was not an isolated structure, but part of a broader ritual network that guided people through the stages of existence. Importantly, Stonehenge does not dramatize death. There are no carvings of figures, no explicit imagery of violence or mourning. Its power lies in restraint. The silence of the stones, their immobility, and their endurance all reinforce the idea of continuity beyond individual lives. This perspective helps explain why so much effort was invested in the monument. Stonehenge was not built to impress outsiders or display dominance. It was built to anchor a community's relationship with time, death, and memory. It offered reassurance that life followed patterns larger than any single person. In standing among the stones, ancient observers may have felt connected not only to the sky above them, but to the generations beneath their feet. Stonehenge, in this sense, was less a monument to the past than a bridge between what was remembered and what was yet to come. As research into Stonehenge advanced, So did disagreement. With each new discovery came competing interpretations, often shaped as much by modern perspectives as by ancient evidence. Archaeology rarely offers complete answers, and Stonehenge has become a case study in how incomplete data invites debate rather than closure. One long-standing theory frames Stonehenge primarily as an astronomical observatory, a prehistoric calendar designed to track solar and lunar cycles. Proponents point to solstice alignments and geometric precision as evidence of advanced sky knowledge. Critics counter that alignment alone does not prove function. Many ancient structures align with the sun without serving as observatories. Correlation, they argue, is not explanation. Another theory emphasizes ritual and social cohesion. In this view, Stonehenge was less about measuring time and more about reinforcing identity. The act of gathering, building, and returning to the site may have mattered more than any single astronomical event. Stonehenge becomes a stage for shared experience rather than a tool for calculation. Yet this raises its own questions. If ritual alone was the goal, why such extraordinary engineering precision? Some researchers argue for a healing or therapeutic purpose, citing the bluestone's distant origins and folklore associated with their supposed powers. Skeletal remains found nearby show signs of illness and injury, suggesting people traveled long distances to reach the site. However, there is little direct evidence that Stonehenge functioned as a place of healing rather than burial or ceremony. There are also hybrid theories that attempt to combine multiple functions, astronomical, funerary, and social, into a single explanation. These interpretations accept that Stonehenge may have changed roles over time. What began as a burial ground could later become a ceremonial center, then a symbol of ancestry. This flexibility aligns with archaeological evidence showing multiple construction phases across centuries. What complicates all interpretations is the absence of written language. Without texts, every conclusion rests on inference. Tools, bones, and stones can suggest behavior, but they cannot explain belief. Modern researchers must reconstruct ancient intentions through patterns, and patterns are open to interpretation. Stonehenge also suffers from its own fame. Because it is iconic, it attracts theories that go beyond evidence, from lost civilizations to extraterrestrial builders. While such ideas capture public imagination, they often distract from the more challenging reality that prehistoric societies were capable of complexity without being mysterious in a supernatural sense. The persistence of debate does not mean failure. It reflects the limits of what material evidence can reveal about human thought. Stonehenge resists a single explanation because it was never designed to answer modern questions. It belonged to a worldview that did not separate science, ritual, and community in the ways we do today. In confronting Stonehenge, modern inquiry reaches a boundary. Beyond that boundary lies interpretation, not proof, and it is precisely at this edge, where evidence ends and certainty dissolves, that Stonehenge continues to endure as an unsolved monument. After centuries of study, excavation, and debate, the most honest conclusion about Stonehenge is also the simplest: we do not know exactly who built it. And we do not know exactly why. What we know instead is what the monument makes undeniable. Stonehenge was not accidental. It was not rushed. It was not the product of ignorance or confusion. Every stone placed within the circle reflects intention shaped by time, cooperation, and belief. The builders understood their landscape. They understood weight, balance, and alignment. They observed the sky patiently enough to recognize patterns that repeat only once a year. And they organized themselves well enough to sustain construction across generations. Who were they? Not mythical giants, not visitors from distant stars. They were people bound to their land, their dead, and their seasons. They lived without writing, but not without memory. They passed knowledge through practice rather than text, through repetition rather than instruction. Stonehenge stands as the physical trace of that knowledge, even after its meaning has faded. Why was it built? Perhaps not for one reason, but many. A place to honor the dead, a marker of time's turning, a gathering point where community, ancestry, and the cosmos converged. Stonehenge may never have had a single function, because the people who built it did not separate life into isolated categories. For them, the sky, the land, and human existence were parts of the same system. What Stonehenge ultimately reveals is not a secret about the past, but a limit in the present. Modern inquiry seeks clear answers, one builder, one purpose, one explanation. Stonehenge resists that demand. It reminds us that meaning does not always resolve into clarity. Some monuments were never meant to explain themselves. They were meant to endure. The stones do not tell a story with words. They tell it with alignment, silence, and scale. They tell it by surviving long enough to outlast the culture that created them. In that survival, Stonehenge becomes less a riddle to be solved and more a mirror, reflecting our need for certainty back at us. Perhaps the most important question is not who built Stonehenge or why, but why we continue to ask. Thousands of years after the last stone was raised, the monument still draws attention, curiosity, and debate. It continues to matter, even without answers, and that alone may be its greatest achievement. If you found this exploration of Stonehenge thought-provoking, consider subscribing to the channel. Each episode dives into mysteries where evidence ends and uncertainty begins, places where the past refuses to explain itself fully. In the next episode, we turn our attention from ancient stone to open ocean, exploring one of the most famous modern enigmas of all, Bermuda Triangle, a region associated with ships and aircraft that vanished without explanation. Subscribe now, and join us as we continue exploring the unanswered questions that still shape our understanding of the world.